Good evening. You're watching News 9 Live. I'm Shweta Kothari. Here are the top stories we're tracking at this hour. Indian equity indices closed strong today, reaching all-time highs. The Nifty hovered around 25,800 mark, while the Sensex surged nearly 1,400 points. All sectoral indices posted gains, with auto, banking, capital goods, FMCG, power, telecom, metal and realty rising 1 to 2%. Top Nifty gainers included M&M, ICICI Bank, JSW Steel, Coal India and L&T. Conversely, Grasim Industries, SBI, IndusInd Bank, TCS and Bajaj Finance were among notable losers. EdTech unicorn PhysicsWallah raises $210 million in a funding round led by Hornbill Capital, with participation from Lightspeed Venture Partners, GSV and Westbridge. The company's valuation surged 2.5 times post the fundraising, reaching $2.8 billion. This marks the close of its Series B funding round. Vodafone Idea said it will host a conference call with its senior management on Monday, 23rd of September. The analysts or investor update call is expected to provide an update on what the telecom operator is up to following the Supreme Court setback on AGRs. And RBI today lifted restrictions imposed on gold loan business of IIFL Finance. The RBI's decision is effective immediately and allows the company to resume sanctioning, disbursal, assignment, securitization and sale of gold loans in compliance with all relevant laws and regulations. LIC Mutual Fund is aiming to increase its asset under management by more than threefold to 1 lakh crore rupees by March of 2026, in line with new funds including a multi-asset fund as well as exchange-traded funds. Reliance Infrastructure's board approved raising 3,000 crore rupees by preferential issue of up to 12.56 crore equity shares of the company at an issue price of 240 apiece, the firm said in an exchange filing today. Global IT services leader Infosys revealed plans to invest up to 17 crore rupees or $2 million in space tech startup Galaxy Eye Space Solution. The investment draws from Infosys' innovation fund and represent company's entry into the growing space technology. Crisis hit Bangladesh government is securing forex to settle out outstanding payments of the Indian power firms SEIL Energy and PTC India, according to letters issued by state-owned Rupali Bank. The correspondence was addressed to companies lender ICICI Bank and IndusInd Bank, which finances PTC, SEIL respectively. BYD, the world's leading electric vehicle manufacturer, is set to launch updated versions of its electric MPV, now rebranded as E-Max 7, in India on 8th of October 2024. Initially introduced as E6, the electric MPV made its debut in the Indian market 3 years ago, primarily targeting commercial sectors. Now, BYD's latest offering marks another step in company's aggressive push into the Indian EV landscape. Good evening. You're with us in Your Interest. I'm Shweta Kothari. The recent tragic death of 26-year-old Anna Sebastian, a young EY Pune employee, has thrown spotlight on critical issues of corporate responsibility in ensuring well-being of employees. Now, reports of her being overwhelmed by assigned as well as unassigned work, alongside her mother's accusations of a toxic work culture that glorifies hard work and overwork, have raised alarms. The case underscores the importance of organizations proactively addressing employee burnout. Now, EY has expressed a deep sadness over the loss and emphasized their commitment to employee well-being. However, Mere statements of regret are insufficient. Companies must implement effective systems to prevent workplace exhaustion. According to the International Labour Organization and its reports, India ranks second globally for extended working hours, with 51% of its workforce clocking over 49 hours a week. Now, the reality makes corporate intervention even more necessary. To mitigate burnout, firms must focus on creating a sustainable work environment. This involves setting up clear boundaries on work hours, enforcing break policies, offering mental health support, and providing platforms for employees to voice their concern without fear of retaliation. Additionally, lenders must be trained to recognize signs of employee burnout early and ensure workload is distributed fairly. Promoting a culture that values employee well-being over extreme productivity is essential to creating a healthier workplace. Now, EY's case has emphasized that organizations must also go beyond corporate rhetoric and ensure physical as well as mental well-being of their employees. Ignoring these responsibilities not only affect employee health but can also lead to legal ramifications and reputational damage, such as what happened in this case. To talk more about the case and what it really means for organization, joining us is Harish Bijoor. He's a brand guru and founder of Harish Bijoor Consultants. Harish, thank you very much, sir, for taking time out. I think we'll begin with the first question, and that is, where does the buck really stop? In Anna's case, particularly, where a 26-year-old really succumbed to what her mother says was overwork, exhaustion, where does the buck stop?
Well, the sad thing is that this has been a terrible, terrible incident. And this is one incident which has been brought to the fore. And one incident means there must be n numbers of such incidents which don't come to the fore. Burnout, etc., is a reality of the great Indian corporate culture. And where does the buck stop? I think the buck stops with companies. The buck stops with the corporate employer. Because between the employee and the employer is meant to have better resources, better forward thinking, better planning, better systems, better processes. And what happened to all these is the key question. And therefore, I think the onus of creating a good workplace, of a non-toxic workplace, rests with the employer. Full stop.
Okay. And the reason I asked you that question, Harish, because there's been a lot of conversation among working class employees, you know, including our newsrooms, where we try and discuss how certain jobs, including working in the Big Four, is a high pressure job. And the people that we've been speaking to have mixed reactions. Some say that if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. But how do you really ensure that the kitchen is not heated beyond a person's ability to take it? Because there are, you know, let's honestly accept, there are certain workplaces and certain work which are far more laborious compared to other work.
On the kitchen analogy, I would say that we need cooler kitchens, much cooler kitchens than we have today. If you look around, there are 21 distinct workspaces in India which are very high tension workplaces. And media is one of them, of course, and the newsroom is equally one of them. So if you look at it, I think it's extremely critical to take care of those employees who can't take the heat. And I think, employers must have the ability to sense who can and who can't take the heat. And particularly new joinees. New joinees must be mollycoddled in the first 11 months of being in a company, because they're the most insecure set of people. Firstly, they have left their homes and they've moved to a new city altogether. Secondly, they're overawed by the work culture. Thirdly, they want to prove themselves no end. They want to burn the candle at both ends. So somebody, a guide, a mentor, needs to be out there holding hands, at least for the 11 months, the first 11 months.
But, Harish, a lot of employees, including your consultancy firms, will say, we have a lot of workload, and every time you sign up to work for us, you know what's coming your way. So you need to be prepared to give us the output that we demand of you. So it's easy said than done to be able to mollycoddle when you have to meet deadlines and where you have promised output to your clients and that you need to deliver on time.
Well, if you don't take care of your employees in these early days, if you say that we have too much of pressure, if you pass on every bit of pressure to the junior most employee out there who's doing all the running around, then this is exactly what will happen.
Okay.
Do you want this kind of thing to happen again and again and again in your corporate workplace? I think choice is yours, corporate India.
Okay, well, rightly said, choice is yours, because Harish, this has become a sort of an issue which is persistent now. We were also talking about similar such issues where people have jumped to death, some have committed suicides, others have died of burnout. In this case, this is a possible case of a burnout. The government of India is already investigating the matter. EY has released a statement, but it also goes on to talk about a culture that promotes overwork. You have veterans in industry, Harish, who talk about working 70 hours a week if you want to succeed, and if you don't do that, you're not likely to succeed or make it in the corporate India. In a culture like that, how do you really change the foundations of what we've been taught from the very beginning?
You know, in this business of how many hours an employee must work, I have a take on that, and the take is very simple one. The employee must decide how many hours to work, not the employer. And the employee must benefit and get all the salaries, bonuses, etc. basis the number of hours they work. So an employee can tomorrow say that I want to work 30 hours a week, full stop. Another employee says I can work 90 hours a week. So be it. But then the choice must be of the employee. It should not be a choice made by the employer. It should not be a choice pushed down the employee's throat by the employer. And that is a fine point to note.
Okay, and in this case, you know, Harish, it's important to point out that EY already has a human right policy. It is committed, as it says, to protect people's right. But this is a blatant violation of any such policy. And EY just being one of those firms, we heard today from a former Deloitte employee talking about why he had to leave because of the work pressure and and his inability to cope. Many such employees are now coming out why they left their workplace, how toxic it was to work at their workplace. What must we do at a corporate level to actually change it? Because there are policies in place, but they're never really implemented in spirit.
Importantly, the employee does not get the kind of an authority to decide what he, she, or they wants to do within an organization. And I think that's the first thing that should be handed over to them. The employee must decide how much they want to work, how many hours they want to work, and therefore what kind of a career they want to build for themselves. And I think apart from that, I think employers must, as I said, mollycoddle the first 11 months. And after that, when the employee has settled down, it's a different matter, because, employees will do exactly what they want as they keep growing up. They become more savvy, they become more intelligent in the way they handle their bosses. And the last point is toxic bosses. We still haven't spoken that subject. I mean, 73.4% of all employees leave their companies in India because of their immediate bosses, not because of their companies, their brands, their HR,
but Harish,
isn't
that a reflection of the culture that a company also promotes? Often you see toxic bosses because that's the culture, that's what they are getting. So they're really passing it down to their, the people they're working under, or people who are working for them, rather, their team members.
This pass the poison culture, I think that needs to stop some way or the other. Otherwise, we're going to kill ourselves in more ways than one. And therefore, I think, this is not an issue of the big four at all. It happens in literally every other corporate space. It's happening in government spaces. It's happening in media, entertainment, maybe 6 other verticals. So let's not hold it only to the big four. I mean, literally it's everywhere.
Absolutely.
We need to stop it.
We need to stop it. We need to stop it now, because, we were also running through some of those figures which are coming out of surveys done internationally that tell you that India is one of the most overworked countries. In fact, the second or third most overworked country in the world, where an average employee clocks in about 46 work hours. Harish, does that come as a surprise to you? And from a brand's perspective, is that good branding or bad branding? Because, a lot of people take pride in the fact that we are a country, a people that deliver. that deliver despite the workload, despite the mounting pressure, odd work hours. We believe in delivering, and perhaps that's why we stand out. We take a lot of pride in it. So perhaps I think we need to really change the way we also look at Indian employees and Indians per se as workers vis-a-vis our foreign counterparts, our Western counterparts.
46 hours actually surprises me, because I do believe it's 52 hours as per my calculation, as by my numbers, which simply means to say that we are working a little too much at times.
Absolutely, too much at times. In fact, most times. Harish Bijoor, thank you very much, sir, for joining us on that very important story. This is a tragic death, but it also shines light on what we call burnout. And it does goes on to reflect that it wasn't just one Anna, many people who have succumbed to burnout. And the figures, of course, tell you a tale of where Indians are overworked, they are underpaid, and they are stressed. Surveys on surveys are suggesting that, and it's time for corporate India to change that image. With that, we'll slip into a very short break. We'll be back in just a bit.
Hey, careful, huh? My daddy got it from abroad. Hey, disaster! How will you pay for the loss now?
In stock market, you should take risk as per your capacity and knowledge. Trade in options very carefully.
Wow, Dikra! Absolutely perfect. Take risk with full understanding.
Soch kar, samajh kar, invest kar.
Have not quite lived up to their pre-tournament billing, delivering a series of less than convincing performances. With 2 draws and a solitary win,
your son will be Messi. No studies, just football all day. Go, my son, go. Make my face shine through playing football.
Not only your face, but also the country's. I will conquer the world by playing football. Come, let's go to Germany!
World's largest football talent hunt, News 9 Indian Tigers and Tigresses. In association with DFB Pokal, Bundesliga, BVB and India Football Center. Train and play matches in Europe. Register now and fly to Germany. IndianTigersandTigresses.com.
For the very first time in our investigation, we unmasked the killer of Ravindra Matre.
In 5G, we have to stand with the world, and in 6G, we have to lead the world.
Winning a Grammy was an absolutely surreal experience. This was the kind of terrain that mountaineers basically climb on. You're talking of peaks of 15,000 and 16,000 feet. You have trouble breathing, the cold, the high altitude, the dizziness, the enemy staring at your face. And in some of those cases, the Pakistanis were not even expending ammunition. They were throwing rocks at the Indian soldiers. That's how close it was.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back. You're watching In Your Interest. I'm Shweta Kothari. With India ranking high for extended work hours and a global focus on corporate burnout, employees must find strategies to cope with overwork and toxic environment. In cases like death of Anna Sebastian at EY Pune, it's evident that excessive workload and unbalanced expectation can have fatal consequences. With companies bearing the primary responsibility, employees also need tools to navigate these situations. So what should employees do? Setting boundaries is crucial. Employees should clearly define their work hours and avoid normalization of after-work hours. Establishing a routine that includes breaks, personal time can also prevent exhaustion. Building a support system at work, whether through colleague or mentors, can also provide emotional and practical relief. Sharing concerns about workload or toxic work culture with trusted peers can help alleviate the pressure of isolation many employees feel in such environments. Now, in toxic workplaces, knowing one's right is also essential. Employees can reference legal protection and human rights frameworks, such as EY's Global Human Rights Statement in this case, to seek recourse when overwhelmed by unsafe practices. If internal systems fail, they can also consider reaching out to labor unions or extended bodies. Lastly, focusing on personal development outside of work can also empower employees to explore alternative career options if their current environment becomes unbearable. While the burden of change lies with organizations, these strategies can help employees cope with overwork and toxic culture while also advocating for safer work environment. What are the options that an employee has in case of a burnout, and what should they do? How should they compartmentalize that pressure? Let's talk about that. Joining us is Dr. Bhavna Barmi. She is a senior clinical psychologist. Dr. Bhavna, thank you very much, ma'am, for taking time out. There's a conversation of sorts happening everywhere we look, and the conversation is every time a young person is faced with a situation where they are looking at extreme work for the very first time outside of college, they usually succumb. We're seeing this more in Gen Zs as compared to people who've been psychologically trained to overwork. Is this a problem with the mindset of the young people, or is it a problem with the increased work pressure that a lot of people have to face? Where and who's responsible for this?
See, I think it's a combination of both the things, Shweta, that you're saying. One, I would say many young professionals face immense pressure to succeed quickly, whether it is from their own personal high ambition that they have, whether it is the society, whether it is their family. The need to excel and climb the corporate ladder early and quickly in their careers often leads them to increased amount of stresses. Along with that also comes the kind of the balancing of the financial pressures that they are facing. So sometimes it is balancing the debt, like if there were some student loans that they had taken, or new financial responsibilities where they are resettling into a different space, into a different city. This can also overwhelm the young professionals, and the fear of not being financially secure adds to the stress because they don't want to join the bandwagon of attrition. And thereby they want to constantly keep working so that the chance of not losing the job doesn't come about in their life.
Okay.
So there is a
Dr.
lack
Bhavna,
of jobs.
Okay, Dr. Bhavna, to a young person perhaps watching you right now and watching this show, what are the options they have? Because on one side, they have to provide for their family. They don't want to join a bandwagon of people who are increasingly being either thrown out or leaving because they can't afford to leave. At the same time, their workplace is very toxic. What options do they have?
I think the number one option is to establish a work-life boundary, what we call as work-life balance for one's own self. So very clearly defining the work hours and creating rituals to separate work from family or personal life is very, very important. So thereby we need to encourage the youth to set achievable incremental goals rather than aiming for immediate success. So they need to be encouraged to take smaller steps that can prevent feelings of overwhelming pressure. Because otherwise, if they don't practice this work-life balance in which self-care and personal health or mental and emotional health is not prioritized, then they will succumb to burnouts, exhaustions, and the kind of stressful, unfortunate circumstances that are happening. They must recognize that what is the work-life balance that they themselves can maintain, because each employee, each youth is different from the other. So they cannot get into a comparative. I have to define for myself what is my work-life boundary, and in the time when I have quality time for myself, what is it that I can do to practice stress management? Okay, do I like to incorporate a hobby? Do I need to cultivate some mindfulness breathing exercises? Do I want to get on exercise? Because three things that employees, and especially the younger employees, should not compromise on is their sleep, is their nutrition, and is their exercise, both mental as well as physical. And that is the first thing that we compromise on. Second thing is the lack of connectivity. We somehow start becoming very isolated under stress zones or work zones where our primary focus becomes only on work. Vis-a-vis, we need to identify that there is quality time that I need to keep for myself, in which there is quality time for my family and my social connects. Because having a avenue outside of my workspace, which is not only with my peers or my seniors, is going to give me that extra shield of de-stress around me. And definitely at work, you must create a safe space. A safe space where if you are finding yourself triggered or overworked, then you should be able to go and speak, starting with your peers, to your bosses, to your managers, to your HR. Go and seek where there is employee assistance programs, where there is wellness and well-being established in the corporates. And here I would urge every corporate to have this kind of an employee assistance program for their employees.
Absolutely.
I think it is a mandate, especially for the youth of our country, to have access to these kind of resources.
All right,
Online,
Dr. Bhavna Barmi, as much as ma'am, I would like to have you more on the show. We've run out of time. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for sharing what employees can do. It's also important to remember there's always a choice to say no, and employees can exercise that choice to say no. It's not a privilege, it is a choice. And perhaps we believe more and more employees will now start saying no to overwork, to excessive phone calls, to work beyond stipulated hours. And with that, we've run out of time on this show. Thank you very much for watching.
Hey, careful, huh? My daddy got it from abroad. Hey, disaster! How will you pay for the loss now?
In stock market, you should take risk as per your capacity and knowledge. Trade in options very carefully.
Wow, Dikra! Absolutely perfect. Take risk with full understanding.
Invest Give it to me, pass.
We'll put new glasses in the windows and they keep breaking it. This is the fourth time. You are playing football throughout the day. Will you win the world by playing football?
Yes, uncle. I will now conquer the world by playing football. Let's go to Germany.
World's largest football talent hunt, News 9 Indian Tigers and Tigresses. In association with DFB Pokal, Bundesliga, BVB and India Football Center. Train and play matches in Europe. Register now and fly to Germany. IndianTigersandTigresses.com.
For the very first time in our investigation, we unmasked the killer of Ravindra Matre.
In 5G, we have to stand with the world, and in 6G, we have to lead the world.
Winning a Grammy was an absolutely surreal experience.
And Muktiwani Yoda, who was aide to Sheikh Mujib, came to my show. I told him that the family of Sheikh Mujib is under captivity of the Pakistani forces. The first lady came with Sheikh Mujib and she embraced me and said, the God, the Allah has sent you to save us. Modi ji and the Hasina. During talk, she brought out this point again that Major Ashok Tara of Indian Army said me, my mother, my sister, my brother, we got independence on 17th December because of Ashok Tara.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
One of my friends was residing here. Every rainy season, he will take his mom or otherwise even the dog also, pet dog also, he will take the pet dog and go to the resort, which is at Banasura Sagar Dam. This time around, he didn't. So, completely washed out. There is no idea about my friend.
हमारा फैमिली में रिलेटेड फैमिली था और उसके रिलेशन में तकरीबन 20 लोग मरा हुआ। अभी हमको पता नहीं सलाह भी मिलेगा नहीं मिलेगा, अभी 5 दिन हो गया।
Streaming on News 9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Hello and a very warm welcome to all of you on Game On. I'm Neha Bhardwaj Alter, and India are in a commanding position after day 2 of the Chennai test. While India's batting may not have their fans feeling all that confident, the team's bowlers did the job magnificently on day 2 of the Chennai